We're getting so close to having this front closed up. Obviously the next step is to start working on the anchor winch. In the next few weeks I need to get my anchor winch put back together, and there's still a wee bit of rust on the inside of the anchor winch itself. So what I'm going to do is build a decent electrolysis rig, show you how we get the rust off so we get a nice clean machine to start putting back together.
With little money, lots of support, Kiwi ingenuity and good old blood, sweat and tears, we're creating a community expedition and research boat built and run by volunteers from around the world, because life is too short not to fight for your dream.
I took a stroll downtown this evening when I heard music echo through the night. The same old songs that I heard the night before. So I started running so I wouldn't be too late. I didn't think that I would ever see your face again, but I was wrong. Yeah, I was wrong.
First step for electrolysis is a decent tub. You want to completely submerge whatever you're working in. So this housing will be completely underwater, and we'll be electrically connecting it through this wire strap here. So this whole thing will be negative, and this strap will be bolted down into the housing, and then it allows me to have my alligator clips out the side of the fitting over here on a nice piece of steel. Rust removal with electrolysis is directional, so it goes from negative to positive. So we're going to be putting our housing as negative and a positive in the middle here, and here's a positive electrode that I welded up earlier, just a piece of scrap steel, and it just sits down in the middle here like that, and it'll pull all of the rust to it. So by having it in the middle there, everything that's rusted onto this housing will basically start heading across from the negative side over onto the positive side. Now, because it's directional, if I went and put this over here, it would clean this side, it would clean this face, but it wouldn't clean this face here or this face here. Only a tiny little bit, not enough for it to make a difference. So by sticking it in the middle, it means that we can have a clear line of sight all the way through from every part of this housing into that center electrode. The next step to bake the ultimate anchor winch is baking soda. So with a pair of scissors, you're ready to go. Now if you look very closely, you might be able to see I put a small amount of baking soda in the bottom of this tub. It's incredibly important that you get this mixing ratio right. That's why I was so precise with my measurements when I put this in. That was a lie. It makes almost no difference at all. The more baking soda you got, the faster it'll happen. The less you have, the slower it'll happen. But that's it. Doesn't affect anything else.
This episode is sponsored by Athletic Greens. Thanks guys. We're so busy and we're pushing our bodies constantly to build Brupeg, so healthcare is really important to us. Dame uses Athletic Greens, AG1 nutritional drink in the morning, to get lots of vitamins and minerals and goodies to help sustain him. It's fast and simple to use. 1 scoop, 1 minute, once a day, every day. Dame doesn't even stop when he's trying to catch the light for a particular shot in the morning for an episode. He takes his AG1 with him and drinks it on the go. What matters to us is recovery, because Damien is using his muscles and endurance all the time, particularly for the big jobs like cutting the crash bulkhead open and replacing metal panels. So body recovery is really important. Heaped with minerals and goodies, it helps with all those issues to have your muscles working and sustained. It's fast and we don't have to mix a lot of different things together. It easily shakes up, dissolves really fast, and it's ready to go. Plus it's really tasty. Click the link in the description below to get a 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D3, K2 and 5 travel packs free with your first purchase.
Next step, water. Right, now that we've got that mixed in, it's time to bolt this electrode down and start the electrolysis itself. So this is going to be my negative terminal here, so it's basically just an alligator clip onto the welder, and it bolts onto this housing. So this whole housing will be negative, and then this plate will be positive, and the rust will be basically pulled out of the housing and attached to this plate here. So I'll leave that like that for a while. It'll just bubble away. Little welders just chaffing away over in the corner there. Yeah, probably give that maybe 24 hours, come back and see how we're doing, and then just check the water level throughout the day to make sure it doesn't get too low, because it does boil off, hence the lid. So while that's ticking away in the background, I've built a little rig. This thing allows us to pressure test our tanks. A couple of people in the comments have said it's unlikely that we're ever going to be able to seal the air fully out of this tank. I respectfully disagree. This allows us to absolutely have certainty that we'll have a completely airtight tank. And it's imperative that we have an airtight tank because that's under the waterline. So if there's any leaks, that whole front end fills up with water. So absolutely it's not acceptable for us to not get a perfect seal. Now this thing here is a gauge up to 8.7 psi, just with a Nitto fitting on the end. So we can screw that into our tank, plug our air compressor into this side, and then just open the valve until we get 2 or 3 psi on the gauge, and then just hold it there. It also allows us to then, with pressure in that tank, go around and start squirting soapy water on every weld, every join, every seal, and make sure that we can find any areas that need work. And if they need work, it's just a simple case of grind it out, weld it, and just keep doing that until you've got no leaks left. Oh, we've got a new neighbour. Right, in order to close this front up, I need to do some pressure testing. So, in this bulkhead here, we've got this fitting here. We've also got this pipe coming through this, what is basically the front bulkhead on the fuel tanks. So we've got a port and starboard fuel tank on either side here, separated down the middle by a vertical bulkhead. What I need to do is go through and pressure test them. In order to do that, I need to tap out the bungs that sit at the bottom of each tank. So on each of Brupeg's fuel tanks and water tank, there is a 1.25 inch bung. Normally gets a little stainless cap like that put on top of it, and that's where we start our pressure testing from. A while back when I welded these in, they're not perfectly straight. Like when I welded it, it's obviously warped and buckled the thread a little bit, because these don't seal up perfect. So what I'm going to do, run a tap through the thread and just clean it out, and then I can put the bungs back in properly with a decent sealant. But before we do that, we have to actually put the pressure testing rig inside here, and this is where we feed the air in and out of.
You can see here Dame is using thread tape to bulk up the fitting to make sure that it's airtight.
My whole world changed, baby, since you came around. So take a chance on us. Take a chance on us. Oh, my whole world is tainted by the colors of your touch. So make a change for us. Make a change for us.
We are getting there. You can see around here it's basically now grey, bare metal. So take it out of the water there, you can sort of see how clean that is. There's still a little bit of rust down in this area here around the top. So that was about 24 hours. So let's give it another burst.
For Dame to be sure that the forward fuel tanks are airtight, he has to finish the access hatches into each tank, so back into the Cofferdam for him. I'm sure he's happy about that. It's a sure sign though that we're getting closer to the delayed launch, because this is one of the last jobs. Thanks for all your patience, both with Dame's appendix deciding to do a little dance and need to come out, and finding rust in the crashed bulkhead. We've been delayed by 4 months, but we're getting there. Thanks guys.
Give me some time to breathe. Some time to speak. There's all the truth inside, and I promise you it's time. No bravado, no more strange, stupid games, just one motto. No more pain, all in vain. Let your guard down. Call my name when you need a friend. No bravado.
The first step to getting these tanks pressure tested is bolting these plates on. the challenge that I've got is that the bolts are a really oddball size. So I have 1 inch thread length is too short and 32mm is too long, so I have to basically chop down a 32 to get in between, I don't know, 28mm, something like that. So yeah, I've got a stack of bolts to do. I've got 32 bolts to cut down, so I'll probably try and make up some sort of jig so that I can just get them in the drop saw and just bang them out in the drop saw really fast. So we'll go down and we'll make something that we can do that with.
Now, if you're an eagle-eyed viewer, you may notice I'm not using a drop saw and I haven't built some sort of gadget that allows me to smash these out really fast. What I have indeed ended up with is 2 lines drawn on the top of the vise and a grinder where I'm cutting them to length. This happened through a curious set of circumstances where I came down and designed and thought and came up with some sort of world-leading plan to build a prototype bolt cutting shortening machine, and all of that ended up in the bin and I cut it with a grinder. So the system I'm using on all of these hatches is tap the threads out so we're working with something nice and clean to start with. Blow all the rubbish that's left in the threads, there's a lot of dirt and rust and things like that. Check the gasket fits, then on with the lid. Next step is every bolt gets a spring washer so that we can make sure that these don't rattle themselves loose. We also use copper coat on all of the threads so that we can get them open at any stage into the future. Now I've swapped from using a cap head bolt to a 6-sided hex bolt just because it's a lot easier to crack these open with a rattle gun if we need to. I'm tapping out any threads that are giving us any trouble with misalignment for that lid, and then once every bolt is in, doesn't necessarily mean to be tight, we just nip it up with the battery rattle gun, get them all nipped up. And then I'm torquing everything up so that we've got a consistent tightness on these bolts.
No idea what these should be torqued up to, but they're pretty big bolts. I've done them to 140 newtons, just so that I can have a consistent number. If it leaks out of the seal, I know I can maybe just crank that up a bit higher. I could probably go a bit less if it doesn't leak it, but I'm not going to do it. I'll just keep them fairly tight. And then I'll write how tight I've got them on the bulkhead so that we can do checks at any stage and know where it should be. I doubt these are going to come loose. They've got spring washers, so they should be pretty good overall.
And rinse and repeat. Now that the hatches are on, it's time for the floorboards to come out.
So this is the Cofferdam, and it does quite a few things. So I'll run through all the bits and pieces that are in this area of the boat, what they do and how we use them. So first things first, why have a Cofferdam? So behind this bulkhead is about 8 to 10 tonne of fuel. Behind this bulkhead is about 7 tonne of water. And because the Brupeg was built to survey, you can't physically have them separated by one piece of steel. So say for example, this tank leaks. Right now it goes into the Cofferdam and it still doesn't get into the water. Vice versa, if the water leaks, it doesn't get into the fuel. If there was a single bulkhead between them, there's the possibility for cross-contamination. So Cofferdams stop that risk. The other side of it is they allow you a place where you can access your tanks. So in this side here, we've got our 2 see-through hatches that we built a while ago, and then on this side we've got our 2 steel hatches which go into our veggie oil storage tank. We've got these rungs that I welded in a while ago. That's just basically a ladder to get up and down into this area and just make life a lot easier to climb in and out. We used to have a bolt-in ladder, but it took up too much room, and room is pretty critical up here, so we welded them in. I've also got this big screw-in cap here, a 2-inch cap. This is the pipe that goes all the way through into the crash bulkhead. So if the crash bulkhead is ever ruptured, this here can be opened. If water comes out, we've got a hole at the front. If water doesn't come out, then there's no hole at the front. However, we're going to actually put a small fitting on here so that we actually only end up with a 1/2 inch ball valve. So we can crack the ball valve, and it's just we don't need a big flow of water, we just need to know is there water or not. So having a ball valve on here will make life a bit easier. So we're going to modify this end slightly. So this is the forward side of the cofferdam. This is the fuel tank bulkhead. So we've got 2 pickups in each tank. So we've got one here and one behind this plate that we're using to blank off. You can see the raw fittings over here. So we've just got a BSP fitting there welded in, as well as a plate over here, a flange plate over here welded in. Now, this fitting here the pickup goes all the way down to the bottom of the tank, and we can pull fuel out from the very bottom of the tank. Generally what that means is you're pulling water out, water and dirt and things like that. You don't want your fuel pickup to be this one. You want your fuel pickup to be this one here, which stops about 6 inches short of the bottom. That's a safety feature that's built into most commercial tanks, because if you're sucking from the dead bottom of the tank, you're almost certainly going to get rubbish down your fuel lines. But if you leave a small portion in the tank, all of the crud settles down there, but you still want to be able to pull that out via a separate method, and that's why we have 2 pickups in each tank. So this is the aft bulkhead in the cofferdam, or the forward bulkhead in the water tanks. Behind this steel plate is 7 tons of water. We've got 2 sight glasses so that we can see where the water level's up to. These are just temporary so that we can pressure test. We're going to be putting better sight glasses in, but this is just to block up the 2 holes, top and bottom. We have a pickup for each tank down here, and then we also have a flange, one here and one over here. And what that does is links up with the fuel tank over in front here, and we've got stainless pipes that go pretty much from this cofferdam all the way down to the engine room. They go underneath the floor in the freezer room and work their way to the back end of the boat, and that's how we pull fuel from these front tanks into the engine room and then distribute it around the engine room wherever it needs to go. And then finally, just down here you might be able to see there's a bung. That's just a drain from when we're working on the hard and we need to wash this room out and then drain it out. That's all that does, it's just a drain. Underneath me is 2 blocks of cement that we poured into the boat when we sandblasted and rebuilt this room. Other than a really good clean and a paint, this room is finished. On the front end of Brupeg, underneath our monstrous shade cloth and all of our rope storage, we've got our fuel filler. So on the side deck we've got these washboards here and a scupper, so it directs all the water over the side from the bow. This is where our fuel filler is, one on either side for each of the fuel tanks up front. What I need to do is basically stop any air from leaking out of this. So this and the vent have to be sealed up as good as I can get. I don't know how well they seal, probably not that crash hot. I'm thinking I'll probably put a rubber gasket at the bottom of the lid, but for now we're just going to be using a bit of gas tape to seal this up really well. The 2 vents, one for each tank, sit right behind the hatch to get into the anchor room. So these here, I'll pull them apart so you can actually see how they work. They have a rubber gasket at the bottom. Alright, so on the inside you've got a threaded rod welded to essentially a pipe with a cap on top. So you just weld a flat onto a cap, and then over on this side you've got a piece of flat plate with a thread in there as well. A couple of little round bars that just hold it up, a flat landing, and then a rubber gasket. This is no longer rubber, this is more something horrid. And then we've got a metal gauze just to stop monsters climbing down inside the fuel tank. But that's it, they're really simple. And I have heard the commercial trawler guys tell me to throw a heavy duty plastic bag over these when you go to sea. And then when you want to use your tank, take the bag off and pull the fuel out. But yeah, just don't rely on these 100% so that to seal up, because they don't. We need this to be airtight, so I've got a new 3mm nitrile rubber gasket that I've cut out for this. Put the gauze back on, screw the lid back down, and with a bit of luck this will be able to be sealed tight enough to hold air. Alright, compressor on. Got some air running down to the front of the boat, and then that allows me to put some air pressure into the front fuel tank. So, Nitto fitting, it allows me to plug the cable, the air line in nice and easily. Got a ball valve so we can just control, air on off. And then gauge is goes up to 8.7 psi, so I got sort of fine adjustment. I want about 2 psi, just so that I know, I've pressurized it, but not enough to cause any sort of damage or popping or pinging or anything like that. The reason I want to put some air pressure in this and test this for Rigidity is I want to make sure every weld, so we've done this panel a long time ago, I want to make sure that's good, I want to make sure our fillers are good, we've done a few welds there. Then also inside the front of the boat here, I want to pressure test this bulkhead here. So I'm not expecting any problems on this tank over here. I'm also not expecting any problems on this tank here. I want to check this pipe here, and I want to check this fitting here. I don't expect any of them to leak. I'm never going to get as good access as what I have right now. So now's my chance. Right, so 1 PSI. One and a quarter. It's a big tank, takes a wee while to fill it up. Almost 1.5.
I thought the tank was holding pressure at this point, but it's very slowly leaking out the top. You'll see in a second.
So simple test, now that I've got a reading in there and it's sitting on one of the marks, I can just see if it leaks. So I'll give it 10 minutes, come back, and if the gauge has dropped down, I know there's a leak somewhere, I can start investigating a bit more. If there's no leaks, if it doesn't drop down, then job done. Okay, it's like 30 seconds later and it's dropping down. It was up a couple of lines, it's down already. So I know there's a leak. It doesn't necessarily mean the tank's leaking, it's probably just one of the seals that I've got somewhere, like maybe thread tape on the filler cap or something like that. So we'll put a bit more pressure in and then we'll start walking around and soapy water spray everything to find where the leak is. Okay, back in the Cofferdam, this is just some dishwashing liquid and some water. So you just want to give it a whiz up so that it's sort of soapy. And then spray it around any area that might leak. What you'll find is you'll get bubbles if there's a leak. So far, so good. Right, let's go test the filler. This is an area I welded in, so this potentially could be a leak, but there's absolutely nothing happening there. And there's also a join just here. There's nothing whatsoever going on there. What I'm looking for is, I have wet hands and I'm basically putting my hand all around the join, seeing if I can feel a temperature difference with the back of your hand. Back of your hand's really sensitive, it's kind of quite good for that sort of stuff. Couldn't feel anything, so pretty confident that there's no leak there. So I know there's a leak. Exactly where it is I don't know yet, and I think there's only two other options, and it's basically up the front. It's either filler or vent. Okay. Bucket loads of soap. Jump on the other side, see if we can see anything. Okay, remember what we're looking for is big bubbles blowing. So that might be one just there. It doesn't matter if this leaks because this is just a temporary, you know, taped up, basically threaded on lid with some thread tape. So, and it's like as tight as I can get it by hand. So if that's the only leak, we're good. However, I can hear the vent leaking, so let's go check that out. Oh yeah, wow. That'll do it. Can you see that little hole? Let's see if we can make it dramatic. Okay. Oh, okay, so they're leaking out the lid itself. That is a perfect example of how to find a leak. Okay, so some areas we've got a weld in here, that's not leaking, I'm happy with that. There's welds up in here. These are all original up here, so I don't think any of these are going to leak. The seal itself is as good as I'm going to get it. I might do a double layer. Jess was talking about adding 2 layers of rubber. I think that's probably going to work quite well, so we might do that. And we know that that little pinhole there is leaking. You can block that up like that. So overall, I think we're good up here. I'm going to go check it in the crash bulkhead and see how we're doing down there.
So to start with, you lost about a quarter, half a PSI. I gave it 2 top-ups, so it's actually holding at the moment.
As well as all this work, Duncan and Damien have been working on the monitoring system for the motor for 3 days straight. We'll show you that in a future episode. Thanks for your help, Duncan.
It's probably a bit better now because I've just fixed the leak. Probably a bit better now, I just fixed the leak. Hey, that's new.
Yep, no, it's holding.
Holding?
It's dropped a fraction.
Oh, there's a leak. There's a pinhole leak at the top that I know about. There's an actual relief hole in the vent, so it will leak over time.
Yep, we'll grab a shot of the gauge there.
Yeah.
Very, very close.
So that's what Duncan's looking at. So just shy of 2 psi. So not a lot of pressure. It doesn't need it. What I want to check is in here. Now, I don't think we're going to see any problems in here, but I haven't got any puncture holes in this bulkhead, so I'm not expecting any problems on this one at all. I think that's fine. Can't see any bubbles anywhere. Alright, I'm happy with that. I'm going to call that tank successfully pressure tested. So, wow, feel the fury. Okay, now that we've got that tank signed off, I need to get the other tank at the front done, but in order to do that I need to swap over the flange at the bottom across to the second tank, as well as the ball valve, swap that over. So we'll get those done. The hatch is already good to go. Once those 2 are on, we can basically start plugging the air into the bottom, and we'll see if we can get some pressure holding in there.
See, I siliconed it on. I did not do that.
Okay, that one seems to be holding pressure. Same test, soapy water. So tank's still under pressure. My main concern was this here. Seems to be fine. It's obviously welded from the other side, so I don't think there's going to be any drama, but this is just a lump of rusty steel essentially now, so we can ignore that. I was wondering if this would create bubbles. Seems to be fine as well, so that's sealing up lovely, so we can ignore that as well. The repair I did ages ago is still holding pressure nice, so that's good. We are losing a little bit of pressure, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be out of a hole in that vent. So what do we... Oh, I had it just above 2 before, it's just on 2 now, so we'll go to the Cofferdam and up onto the foredeck and see what we can see. Right, filler on this side. I can't hear anything, so I don't think we're going to have any issue with that guy. So that's a weld that's holding pressure, and that's a seal that's holding pressure. Both of them seem to be fine. I think we're good. Actually, I blew a hole down there when I welded it. I blew a hole just there when I welded it, and that seems to be okay as well. This vent, I thought it was going to have a pressure relief hole over here like the other one. This one over here does, but it doesn't, so that's interesting. But we do have a very slight leak underneath the rubber gasket. I don't think we're going to... Oh, there you go. You can see the bubbles coming out of that. That's basically how you tell you got a leak. So we know it's coming from the bottom. The main thing we need to know is that none of the welds are leaking, and they all seem to be good. That's holding pressure there. So there's 2 psi inside this pipe, and the welds themselves all look pretty good. The rubber seal I accept. If that leaks, it's not ideal, and that's why the fishermen put plastic bags over the top of these things. But overall, I'm happy with that. Right, Cofferdam, last check. So this is a fuel flange. It's a pipe that we can take fuel back to the engine room. This is another fuel pickup that we can pull fuel from that tank. That seems to be fine. And then this one had a flange in here that we don't need, so I welded that up a long time ago. That seems to be okay. Happy with that. Can't see any bubbles. Just checking the weld around here. Not expecting any problems. That one should be pretty good, I think. Yep, maybe just line that off too. Okay, so it's been buzzing away for 48 hours or so. We'll open it up and see what we've got. There's obviously a lot of rust come off given the colour. But let's see what we're working with. That's come back nice. Alright, let's get it out. I'll give it a good clean off. Yep. Go. Awesome. Okay, so that came out pretty good. It needs a wash because a lot of this stuff is actually just sitting, the rust that's there is actually just sitting on the surface. So I'll just give it a bit of a hose down and we'll see how that came up, but it's looking pretty clean. It's sort of grey right down the bottom. But let's give it a clean off now. Probably needs a water blast more than this, but she'll be right. A couple of bits that have come up really good. Let's tip that over. You can see it's come up basically grey. See all the way down under that bearing surface there, you've got nice grey sort of metal.
And here's a reminder of what it used to look like.
Remember, this was pretty rusty when we started, so I will get in with a buffing wheel and just buff off the last of that little bits of rubbish down the bottom there. But that's going to be nice to start assembling with once we've given it a good clean. Probably not going to be able to get to the assembly of this for the next, I don't know, week or two. So what I'm thinking is I'll douse it in oil just to basically keep it in a state of stasis. I don't want it to get rusty from this stage on. But we'll go through over the next few days, and the rest of the parts. So we've got shafts and gears and what else we got? We've got the top housing that bolts onto this one here. All of that's going to be cleaned up as well. So I'll go through and do that with the electrolysis as well. The solution is dirty, but it still works fine. So we'll just keep pressing away with that. But yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with how that turned out.